Hi, I'm Brogan Lambert, and I'm an industrial engineer by trade, but I've been involved in a number of healthy activities, so I've had my fair share of dealing with people. So, what what it is I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create something that allows graduates to enter the workforce in a manner that is less abrupt than it currently is, because if you're a graduate, you'd know that as soon as you get in, there's a host of things that get thrown at you. Day one is always good. Everybody's nice to you. Everything's moving smooth. It's friendly. By week two, pure chaos. Everything is just up in the air. You don't know what's important, what's not important, and before you look, you have zero time. You in a spin, and not all of us cope the same with the spin. Some of us can pull through, some of us can push through, others rely on more time, other people just break down, and you wind up leaving a job you would have otherwise loved simply because you didn't have those tools to deal with the situation as it came. So, one of the reasons this is most important for me is because in my in service year, so just before you get your diploma, you do a year of basically on the job training. I spent my year in a company called Vertiv, network manufacturer. They made network power systems and a host of other things I don't really remember. But what was key for me was I had the most amazing mentor. He was slow, he was smooth, he was understanding, he gave me space. He allowed me to do what I was good at. Basically, it was a bit of a joyride. I didn't have as many restrictions or obligations. I didn't have any particular KPI. I was kind of just there, and I had things from campus I needed to do, but from the work front, I had an an extraordinary amount of support. When I look at my peers versus myself, I realize that I had a pretty much a dream-like in-serve experience. I got what was advertised essentially. So from I wrote my exam. It was just before the end of June. I wrote my exam this Friday. By next Friday, I needed to be in Johannesburg. I get there and it was all fun. My biggest problems were not work related, but more getting to and from work. So you can understand that when I got to where I am now, I was met by confusion because things just flipped over. Things flipped over completely. Now I was inundated with tasks. I was given, whew, I don't even remember. I just remember feeling so overwhelmed by week two, week three. I just remember feeling like, okay, guys, I'm ready. I'm done. This job thing, it's not gonna work for me because I went from being a bit of a golden boy to being the floor boy, or I don't know what's a better comparison, but everyone was high paced, everyone was short with me. It was overwhelming, and it was frustrating in a sense that I was expected to improve, accomplish, make these changes with seemingly no support. Yes, I did have some support. The closest I came to having support was, who do you need to do what? And an email was sent, and that was my support. As you can guess, that's probably not the most ideal method because people tend to get very frustrated with you if your manager keeps forcing them into helping you out with stuff. So it became a thing of how do you combine what it is you know with what it is you need to do. And more often or not, the key figure that makes this possible is your manager. Depending on the type of manager you have and the type of relationship you share with your manager, you can find things to be incredibly difficult. If you guys do not fit in nicely, you wind up feeling like you're unwanted, like things just aren't gonna go your way. Like anything you ask him, he turns you down and gives you zero explanation, and that can be incredibly frustrating. So in my life, I'm now on the fourth manager. I've probably had more here and there, but only four that I acknowledge, and I've worked approximately 3 jobs. My first job was in a butchery, so I was a counter hand, and in my being a counter hand, basically counter hand's that person who gives you the meat. You want lamb chops, I give you lamb chops, you say how many, I put it there, I wrap it up, I give it back to you. So I had this I don't really remember him that well, but I had this manager. He walked me in and he told me, okay, do A, B, C, and D, and don't deal with the customers. That was the key rule that he gave me that day. You guessing where it's going, but that was the key rule he gave me that day. So there was a second manager. He was actually the next manager. This current manager was training him. So he comes, he tells me, hey, you know what, because I got there in the festive season and things got very busy in the evenings. He said to me, you know what, seeing as the store is empty, I want you to deal with customers, basically. Seeing as there's only one customer, and then all the other guys would be able to support me if I flop here and there. So when he said it, in my head, it made sense, but I didn't register back to the other manager. Now, ding, 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 that should have been a red flag for me. Now it would be a red flag, because when you have 2 seniority figures giving you a conflicting message, normally what you do is you subconsciously, you just fall in line with whoever's in front of you at the time, because they have that presence, they have that force, they just have that presence about them that makes you not really want to say no, or let them down, especially if what they're saying makes a lot of sense to you. So you fall in line. And I, like an idiot, I thought they spoke. So the customer comes in and I'm helping her. I'm not doing the best job, but I'm trying. It was day one. Needless to say, as the very first customer, like Murphy's Law kicked in, the other manager all of a sudden sees me, and the other manager all of a sudden is nowhere to be seen. So he worked, the manager who told me to help the customer, he worked along our section, so I could see him, but he had obviously gone to the back or something. That manager came, and never did he get so loud with me. So he was infuriated, he was livid in front of the customer, and I just didn't know what to do. I was on the verge of knocking him out, but I calmed myself, because you at work, you gotta calm yourself. I calmed myself, and he simply wouldn't allow me to explain. He wouldn't allow me to say anything. He just kept going on and on and on and on, and then he told me again, he said this, and he left. And I stood there, I huffed and I puffed, I held my breath, and I went, and then I carried on with my day as normal. The story goes on, but I'm gonna skip ahead. The thing I never understood at that point is seniority. Maybe seniority isn't the right word, but seniority. What happens when you get 2 conflicting messages from people? What I should have done was I should have said, hey, as soon as the second manager came in and he told me to do what I was explicitly told not to do, I should have raised the red flag immediately. I should have said, hey, listen, this is what I was told to do by the other guy, so can you please speak to him and then let me know what I should do, because right now you guys are sending me conflicting messages. So it has a lot to do with how your managers behave. My second job was in the network manufacturing company. Guy was an absolute star. He was a gem. He just fell in line with what I wanted. He taught me so much. It was on to the third guy. The third guy he was chatty. He was very, very, very chatty. I'd go into his office for something small, like, hey, I need A, B, and C. And we'd start with ABC, he'd dissect ABC, and we'd go deep. 3 hours later, I walk out of his office and I haven't gotten A, B, and C. Instead, I've gotten detailed explanations on what needs to happen. So in that regard, he was extremely descriptive in where it was, in describing where we were, where he wanted us to be, and the suggested method of us getting there. One of the problems I had with him is the man knew everything, from sword making to it got so bad. I made a game out of it. I still play this game where I bring up random things in conversation that I know about, hoping for him to say, hey, you know what, I don't know. And to this day, I still haven't had him say he doesn't know. So I call him our encyclopedia. Well, I used to call him, and he left. So with him, I felt like the explanations were there. He was incredibly brilliant, and he'd make time for you. He would absolutely make time for you. Guy left late all the time, simply talking to people, and his emails piled up. He hated emails, but that. Now my latest boss is a complete flip. He is absolutely short. When I say short, I mean 3-minute conversations are too long for that guy. He decides instantly. He has that drive, he has that passion. He's extremely loud, like extremely loud. So sometimes you kind of, there's an unpleasant loud of where you can see somebody is attempting to belittle you, or attempting to simply to just upset you. And then there's when somebody is simply passionate and he runs on 100. That is him. The butchery guy, I could see he clearly, it was an issue of power, and I was also a little bit full of myself back then. And with the new guy, he's incredibly short. He doesn't, no wasted movements. He wants to do absolutely what needs to be done, and only what needs to be done, which is very important. So this brings me back to, you need to understand the psychology of your manager. You need to understand what is it that drives them, what is it that makes them be who they are. Because if I'm someone who requires lengthy, in-depth conversations to understand something, and my manager is somebody who's a 3-minute manager, then we're in trouble. Because I'm going to keep not getting it, and he's going to keep getting frustrated that I'm not getting it. Because he's just not at a level where he can dial out 3-hour conversations, and I'm not at a level where I can understand 3-minute conversations. So it's incredibly important for you to grasp where it is you currently are, you personally. You need to understand, for me to function, these are the things I need. I need less people talking to me. I need more emails instead of people visiting my desk. And whatever else. What are the things you need to function at your absolute best? So you need to sit down and you need to dissect an average day in your work life. What are those things you do, and what are those things that hinder you from doing what you need to do? Once you've identified this list of things, you then need to rank them in order of importance. So if it's more important for you that from 8 until 10, you need to work on loggings or something like that, depending on what you're doing, then you need to bring it up. You need to go straight to your manager. You need to tell him, hey, these are the things I'm working on. And in order to accomplish this, I need this time slot, and these are the reasons why. Now, it's important you structure it in that manner, because simply saying you need those 2 hours, sure, when your manager hears it, he might not have any reasons to say no, but then who knows? Maybe tomorrow something else happens. So you need to explain that if you want me to do this in the best manner possible in the shortest time, to just in absolute perfection, this is what I need from you. I think it is fairly reasonable. I do think there will be adjustments that need to be made. However, you need to weigh those adjustments against the benefits. And maybe you won't get 8 to 10. Maybe you get 9 to 12 or something, depending on what they say, of course, because them too, they have things that they need to do. But before we go on, there is one thing that I think everybody needs to go. If you don't take anything from this, so take just this one thing. Results matter. I'm going to say it again just for emphasis. Results matter. I think a lot of us, when we start working, especially as graduates, we don't think beyond our own circle. What I mean is, we forget that our managers have people they answer to in most situations. Most situations, your manager has a manager who has a manager. So they have their own list of things that they need to achieve, right? And you within their team form a simple part of what it is they need to achieve, and you accomplishing that part. So it's incredibly important you understand what it is they're doing, how you fit into it, and whether or not you can aid that process. So what tends to happen with graduates is they don't understand the difference between it's done and I've done significant work. Case in point, you work on a project, maybe it's a big project, and some time passes and then your manager calls you up. He's like, hey Brogan, how you doing? Need to talk about this, see me in my office when you can, or maybe you get a meeting request. You go, you meet him, you give him an update on the project. You're feeling good because you covered a lot of ground, you've been working really hard, you've been pulling late nights. And at the end of the conversation, he's looking not happy, but not sad at the same time. He's almost looking at you kind of disappointedly, as in, you've only done that. And I've seen people get that look. I give people that look, because I have a graduate and another student under me, so I give people that look because of one simple thing. If something is not done by when you say it will be done, then it is useless to us. Plain, simple, to the point. Something is either done or it's not done. What people tend to do is they tend to say, it's 80% complete, unless it is where we spoke and said it needed to be, and it's not, then it doesn't do me any good. Nobody wants half a heart transplant. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. At the same time, you must keep in mind that your manager has to answer for where you fall short. So if you have a relationship with your manager whereby your manager and you talk a lot, which is rare, for some reason we all want to talk out here, but if you have it, you need to bring it up and you need to ask, hey, look, these are the things I'm busy with. So in this realm of things, which of these is the most important to our current goals? Where do I need to focus 80% of my energy in order for us to be on point? And then perhaps you'll get a simple answer like focus here and here is a little bit less important. But more often or not, we get given that look that everything is important, everything is urgent. That's bullshit. Everything can't be important, everything can't be urgent, especially if you are a lone ranger doing all these things. It's just not going to happen. So you need to find ways of getting them to tell you where to focus your energy. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you need to say, okay, Bob, I'm working on A, B, and C. Of these three, where should I be focusing the bulk of my attention? If I could only get one done of these three, which three would you want that one to be? And then he'll tell you maybe B. Now, it's important you ask why. And I say it's important you ask why because you need to understand their train of thought. Because more often or not, you'll have three items and you think C is where you should start and B is where you should end. For whatever reason, you've probably mapped it out in your head. And they've done the same thing. In order for you to find yourself in line, or rather aligned with your manager, you need to be able to see why is he following the routes he's following. And sometimes they'll be good, sometimes they won't be good. And when they're not good, you'll explain to him, okay, I think we should start with C because of A, B, C, and D. And then he'll say, no, the reason we're starting with B is because of X, Y, Z. And then that'll give you that more in-depth understanding of what it is they're expecting from you. And more importantly, how you can get the most done within the time available to you. Because as we all know, time tends to be relative. But results are finite. They have an end, they have a point. You need to be results orientated. Please avoid complaining. No one likes complaints. Nobody. Every 2 minutes going to your manager saying that this and this and this is wrong, it forms a relationship whereby when they see you, they just think that, okay, now I need to solve problems for you. That's not how the relationship goes. The relationship goes from you to your manager, which means you solve parts of your manager's problems and all the other team members solve the other problems, and he ultimately, or she, supports you all in solving those problems. All those problems of his fall onto his manager's problems, list of problems. So as it goes up, it basically becomes a chain of responsibility and accountability. So you need to be able to look at things from an overall point of view. So when I say overall, you need to look at it, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what's happening in the business. So looking at all these things, what impact does what I'm doing make? Because a lot of the time we find ourselves working hard but not achieving results people want. We find ourselves being incredibly efficient, working extremely long hours, but everyone's unsatisfied, and you reach a state of confusion where you like, I got in at 6, I left at 8, and this nigga's still unhappy. Meanwhile, you did everything that he wanted at some other points in time, rather than the stuff that was needed at this moment in time. So you need to figure out how can you be most effective with your time, because ultimately, in order for you to manage your manager, you simply need to predict what he wants and reach where he's going before he gets there. And what I mean by that is, especially if you're working on big projects and you have the kind of manager who dissects it and he hands you smaller pieces, you need to be able to at least try and map out the rest of what's happening in order for you to look at it and say, okay, me doing this attaches to A, B, C, and D. But in order for the main goal to be achieved, these are the other list of things that must happen. So if I'm doing this, most likely what's happening next is this. And then that's how you'll find yourself moving a lot faster. You'll find yourself having less arguments, less of those tough conversations where you're being asked, are you happy here, and things like that. So we come to expectations. Everyone knows managers have expectations, but 9 times out of 10, none of us know what those expectations are. We think we know what those expectations are, or based on past conversations, we assume. But how often do we sit them down and we just say, flat out, what do you expect of me? What does success look like for someone who works in my position? Unless you know what the criteria is, you're simply going to work yourself into the grave, because the work environment has become so enlarged and so robust that there's just way too much to do. There's way too much to do. So you need to find out, what are those things that I can do that'll make the biggest impact within the shortest amount of time? Because time is extremely critical. Nobody likes a project that goes on for 3 years. Just it's not in us. It's very difficult for people to simply continue with a project over extended periods. That's why we break them into small little chunks and we eat at them. So you need to just figure out how to be more effective with time. And if you're given a task, ask. Even if you think you understand, even if you think, oh, okay, I get it 80%, ask. Ask a question just to confirm your understanding. So if you understand something to be a certain way, ask a question that will elicit a response. And if the response is not similar to what you thought it would be, that means you don't really understand. And another thing, please stop being afraid to go back and ask. There's nothing like saying you understand now. You start the project and you realize, I have no clue what was being said before. I'm looking at everything, looking at the emails, and I'm befuddled. You go back and you ask again. I know it's difficult. I know it's very difficult to ask about something you've already said you know, but it happens. We all forget. Sometimes we misunderstand our own understandings, and that's how we reach a place of confusion. So don't be shy to ask. Don't assume anything in a project. You just have to ask. Always ask. Even if they get annoyed, you ask. They will probably get annoyed after the first time, but you ask. It is less frustrating than someone who says nothing, and then in the end, it's not what we expect. Because if your manager knows you ask like 10 questions, they know that, okay, this person has an understanding. But if you go off and you say, you good, they're going to trust that you're good because you are hired, because they trust in you. They trust that you can accomplish what needs to be accomplished. That's it. Just to end off, one of the tools that I think is really important is communication mediums. And what I mean by that is, you need to see what's the most effective way that you and your manager can communicate. As in, what is the medium? Do you guys prefer emails? Does your relationship sustain emails? As in, are your conversations so far apart that things can be explained sufficiently in an email? Or do you require FaceTime? Do you require maybe WhatsApp or call? You need to find out what works best, and you need to consistently use that. The reason for this is, when when you focus using tools and techniques that aren't to your strength, like if you're not a good talker, but you're always in conversations, it frustrates you. It frustrates you. So some people, myself included, I hate taking pictures. So you're not gonna catch me taking selfies one way, but yes, some people, they like taking pictures. So you need to find out what is the most effective means of communication, and you need to capitalize on it. If it's WhatsApp, and you like those quick responses, that quick chatting in between you and you to get what you need in a quick fashion, you go with WhatsApp. If it's email, because you can be a little more in depth, it's a little more impersonal, then you go with email. But avoid getting yourself into situations where you're using communication mediums that aren't your strength. Personally, talking, it's not my biggest strength. I become very frustrated after the third person. One person asks me something, I'm like, second person, I'm like, third person, I'm pulling my hair out. It's just, I need some space. I love email. You send it now, I don't have to look at it now, but I'll get to it. Lastly, there's being effective and there's being efficient. Being efficient means doing something really well. Being effective means doing what needs to be done. You need to make sure that you being efficient in an effective activity. If you can make 1,000 chocolate bars every second, but somebody wants salt, it doesn't do anything for you. You need to be able to identify where can I make the most impact, and you need to get that done within the most efficient time possible, using all the tools and techniques that you know of. But it has to be something that's going to provide that value, that impact, something that's going to get you to that next level. Okay, awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, just look me up and please ask. I'll have a question or two. I'm sure we'll get along. Thank you. Hey, quick question. What if there existed a course that outlined how to be a super graduate, a course that simply explained those things we learn the hard way in the workplace? What if there was a course that walked you through how to be more productive in the workplace? A course that showed you tools, tricks, and hacks that would allow you to produce the most insane results in the workplace without you having to work extra hours, coming in early, leaving late. A simple set of tools that would allow you to identify those critical items, those items that will inevitably allow you to produce the results that you know you can produce in the time you know you can produce them. I know the work environment can be incredibly stressful. Managers can be overbearing. Sometimes you have more tasks than you know what to do with. You have so much to do and everyone just seems completely miserable. You yourself probably are a little bit miserable. But it's not anyone's fault. That's simply how a lot of the work environments operate, unfortunately. And you find yourself in a place whereby you go to work and it's literally sucking the life out of you. I've stood by the gate once. I was at the turnstile and you see people laughing on the outside, and as soon as they walk through that turnstile, it's just and to top it all off, as a graduate, it's as if there's this unexplainable sense of expectation that's placed upon us. It's as if people think you studied, you should know, you should be able to do this, which is all probably true. But once you add in the dozens of emails coming in constantly, people phoning you, people asking you for everything under the sun, every time you just about sit at your desk to write an email, you get a call, and you find yourself pulled in between several different things, and it's insanity. So what I'm doing is I'm basically putting a course together where I'm gonna highlight ways to be more effective, ways to be more critical, how to be more productive in your job without the misery. Which I know probably must even sound a little bit impossible at this point, because when I started, I genuinely thought I'm gonna shoot myself in the face with this work thing. I couldn't pull it off. I could not. And through a lot of trial and error, basically, I spent my life learning the hard way. I found out that it doesn't have to be that way. Your happiness isn't dependent on how other people feel, but their happiness is. And what I mean by that is, more often or not, there's so much pressure being exerted on everyone around you to perform, especially with the looking of the economy, illnesses, things like that. There's a lot of pressures going around, so everyone reacts differently. So you need to find a way to cut through that noise and continually produce results, because let's face it, we've got people looking up to us, we've got people who have high expectations for us, we have parents who've worked hard to get us where we are. That's just the way it is. So we need to use the chance that we've been given appropriately. We need to use these degrees and diplomas. We need to go out there and we need to crush it, because that too is one of the expectations on us. And that's what I want. That's what I want for people. That's what I wanted for myself. So when I finally did get it, it was uplifting. So it's gonna be a trial course. It's not gonna be extremely huge. It's gonna be just a handful of people, 10 people. We'll have 10 as a pilot, and the 10 of us will communicate, we'll work through it, and we'll basically build the course together. We'll find what works, what don't work, and we'll put it together slowly but surely. But we're going to keep it very small. It's only going to be 10 people, because I think that would just allow me the smallest bit of room between work and actually putting the course together. And with 10 people, I'll be able to get a more in-depth understanding of what's needed and what's not needed, and then we can roll it out to everyone else. But it's going to be small, just 10 people. If you want a part, hit the link below, and that'll take you through to that pre-sales page. Hope to work with you soon.